This is a presentation from the Supernaut Network.
Welcome to the Imaginarium, the show where art, technology, and creativity intersect and combine to forge a conversation that can only be found in the Imaginarium. I'm your host, Scott Colbert, and joining me in his debut as my co-host is the horror nerd himself, Todd Staruch. Welcome aboard, Todd.
Thank you, Scott. I am happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
It's my pleasure. And a lot of people have asked me why I wanted to have a co-host. And the simple answer is really because I wanted to. I'd been thinking about it for a while, and when I had Todd on the Imaginarium back in January, February, I really liked what he had to say. Very articulate, very intelligent, and he displayed that again during the Horror Roundtable, and that's when I really decided that he was the one that I thought would be the best co-host. I think I'm going to be proven right. With that said, today's guest is filmmaker and crowdfunder extraordinaire Rob Dimension. And welcome to the Imaginarium, Rob.
Thanks, guys. How are you?
Good, Rob. Good. How are you?
Good.
I'm doing great.
Rob, a lot of your work contains a lot of similar themes or almost archetypical characters. Is that on purpose or just how things turn out?
I've worked in commercials and I've worked in TV and stuff like that for years, but never had this kind of, I guess, vested interest to write and do that. So I feel like every character that I portray, as sad and as tragic as they may be, I do feel like it's a part of me. I feel like when you watch No Clowning Around, to be totally honest, that is me. That is my life at that moment. As crazy as it may be, I do feel like I put my life out there for everyone to see. Baggage was more based on an idea that a friend and myself had. And we just a conversation over lunch, and I wrote more or less the story of someone that was dealing with loneliness. And Rabbit Hole was more of I don't know if I would consider that character so much as sad as just the fact that he has learned to deal with loss. And I feel like he has lost a lot of things in his life, and now he's trying to show other people that maybe loss isn't so bad that he can rope them in. And I don't know. A lot of people ask me what I enjoy the most, and every time that I do a movie like that particular one that I'm on at the time seems to become my favorite. So it's hard to tell why I kind of stray towards those characters. We have a new one coming out that's more of a dark comedy, and I play a very, very small part in that. And I'm really trying to focus more behind the scenes and behind the camera more than on camera.
Great. Can you share the name of it by any chance, or no?
Yes. It's called Mortimer Tremblay, and we're actually doing pre-orders instead of doing crowdfunding for this one. I thought maybe I would try something different, and I would do pre-orders so people can pre-order it. It's $25, and you get the DVD plus you get some extras. We're going to do behind the scenes. We're fortunate this time around where our budget isn't very big because we don't really have any special effects. That really helps a lot. Plus, our filming day, our schedule is very short. So you can go to you'vebeenrobfilms.com and people can pre-order it there.
I think pre-orders really is a good alternative to doing the Indiegogo and the Kickstarter stuff.
Yeah, we limited it. We limited the release to only $250. And a lot of people will say, well, why would you limit it? Well, for one, we wanted it to be special. Another thing that we wanted was to be able to show that if you figure $25 times 250, it's like $6,200. I don't know. I mean, I don't need all that, and that will hopefully help me make additional films. Do you know what I mean? So instead of trying to be so greedy and say, oh, I want to try and sell 1,000, let me just kind of chip away and do something, because I do consider this film more experimental, because it is a dark comedy and it is going to be a little bit of a different trip for people. It's not sad, but it's at the same time it's just different for me, meaning that it's a lot of imagery and not so much telling like a certain story. I don't know. I'm a big fan of it as of right now, and I'm excited. I've involved Matt Barnes with me again, who has been working if you've ever went to, You've Been Rob Films, or if you've been to robdimension.com, we have what they call The Journey, which is a documentary. We're 5 episodes in, and it's the story of my son, who is 14. He's now 15. He's an amateur wrestler, and he's training to be a professional wrestler. So we've been doing that. He also helped out on Rabbit Hole, and I also have grabbed Mike O'Mahony again, who also is a filmmaker who's done The Dark Place Inside that I worked on him with, and he was the co-director, cinematographer for Rabbit Hole. So it's not even so much anymore of having titles specifically. It's just guys getting together and making something that they want to make and trying to be more of a community. I feel like it's important to have that. And so many people are hung up on with having credits and having all these titles, and we're just guys that just want to make a good movie. That's why we'll all have our hands in the directing, we'll all have our hands in the cinematography. We're all going to have our hands in editing, just to kind of give that a try to see how it works out. I work really well with Matt, I work really well with Mike, so I'm very excited for this project, very much.
Rob, I still haven't forgiven you for the role you played in A Dark Place Inside.
Yeah.
The listeners out there want to know what I'm talking about. Get the movie and watch it. You'll see what I mean. It's well worth it.
There has to be an ease in filmmaking when you're working with the same group of people all the time. Does that make the process a lot easier because you kind of know what everybody's strengths and weaknesses are?
Well, so far, this will be the first time that I've worked with the same people twice. There's also a short film on the Rabbit Hole DVD that deals with my character. It's just a one-man show, and it was myself, it was Matt, it was my wife Kim. It's called Boob Tube, and that kind of was a dark comedy also. And that was an opportunity where we just shot it in my basement. We shot it over the course of 3 days, so I got to really work with Matt, and I've gotten to work with Matt a lot. And I feel like he's very valuable in the way the documentary especially has been going. So I am anxious to kind of get him a little bit more involved, because on Rabbit Hole, he kind of was just in the background and did a lot of sound and audio and stuff like that. So this time he's a little bit more involved in this film, in Mortimer Tremblay. Mike, like I said, we have a really good chemistry. When we were on the set of his film, A Dark Place Inside, he entrusted me as an actor and saw how far I would go, because it is just a role. It's not real life. I mean, I have kids, but I'm not some pervert, but in the movie I come across that way. And he was another one. I pitched him an idea. I was like, hey, I have this idea for Rabbit Hole. Would you be interested? And he was like, yeah. And we worked together really, really well. I like working with people that that do make it easy, but at the same time, Jeremiah Kipp, for instance, he's a no-nonsense guy on set. I love him with all my heart, and I think he's the smartest guy, really a visionary, super good. But on set, he's very tough. There's not a lot of talking. He's in his a certain frame of mind, where he's really focused, and it helps because, I think on a set before that, I was a little bit too relaxed. So now here he's making us take, be very tense, and I felt like it added to the film. Rabbit Hole, we did have a little bit more fun, but at the same time, we were surrounded by some extras, and we were working with people that we were kind of a little bit more familiar with. So I expect this shoot to be a little bit looser, but at the same time, because I am going to be behind the camera a little bit more, I am going to demand a little bit more out of the people that are playing the roles. We enlisted Christopher Dalby, who was in as our lead as Mortimer, who was in A Dark Place Inside, and he's a very, very, very good actor. And I've already sent him a bunch of notes, and I really feel very confident about his portrayal and everyone else that's in it. I've sent them notes about what I feel, because, when you write something, for me at least, I do give each individual person, even if they're an extra or whatever, a story, and I base something around them, and I might have a backstory for them. So I feel all that is helpful in those people portraying those roles.
How do you write? You said you're a lone writer. You just lock yourself away in your room and type out the script. What's your process for that?
My process is really weird. My process is I don't put anything on paper for a while. It all just kind of sits in my brain and kind of cooks for a little bit. And I start to think of different parts of the film, and I start to vision it. I don't really know how to describe how it happens. It's kind of like someone's beaming it down to my brain, and I'm like getting it in little parts. and then I start to write it down. I usually look for like the start. I usually look for a middle as far as like the middle act, and I look for a finish. And then I kind of fill in the pieces as I go. Sometimes, I mean, because I only have experience writing shorts, and most of my shorts are anywhere between, I don't know, 7 to 25 pages. Primarily, I don't really have many problems filling it in. Now, I would like to do a feature, and I would like to write a feature, and there is stuff baking in my brain right now that's dealing with that. The ideas that I'm getting for this are really like just banana crazy. I usually will sit and whatever I'm trying to like kind of put out there visually, like for instance, like Baggage. I watched a lot of Hitchcock. I watched a lot of David Lynch. So I feel like if I watch a lot of it, like those ideas and those visions kind of seep into my brain, as weird as that sounds. And for Mortimer, I watched a lot of comedy specials to see what works. And at the same time, I've been watching a lot of David Lynch still. I've been watching a lot of, off the wall 80s stuff just to kind of get a feel for different camera angles and different ideas and different like randomness things that you can add to scenes that make the scene more fun or make the scene more visual. So my process is typically, it does take me a little bit to write because I do get a lot of ideas in my head and then I start to write them on paper. And once I start to write a script, the way that it works is I write it down and it takes me like 2 days to finish it. And I almost never go back and rewrite anything. Once I write it, it's done. Like as weird as that sounds, it's probably terrible to do that because I mean, I didn't go to school for it or anything. I'm just writing down whatever's in my head. But I feel like I've rehearsed it in my head enough where when I write it down, it kind of comes out the way that I want it to come out.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, the results are there on the screen. So whatever you're doing, Rob, you're doing something right.
I appreciate that.
You just mentioned Alfred Hitchcock and David Lynch. Would you consider those two directors two of your biggest influences?
I probably would say David Lynch more than anyone. I like that he's not afraid to put things out there. I also enjoy the fact that not everything in life has to make sense because generally when we live life, do you ever see like have something happen and you think to yourself, well, that was random, or that didn't really make much sense. Right. So I feel like when things are so laid out, look, the horror community or film goers or people that watch movies, none of us are dumb. As much as Hollywood would love to think that we can't handle much, we really can. So I feel that the viewers can handle quite a bit. So if I feel that they're smart, then everyone's going to have a great time. And then they're going to be like, oh, wow, that was so awesome. Or, and I try to always have things that are open-ended where people can leave it up to themselves to have an idea of the ending. It's so rare that I do anything that's just laid out simple. I'd rather have some sort of a loophole at the end. I mean, you guys both see Baggage. Now, for those that didn't, they can go to you'vebeennrobbedfilms.com and it's on the right-hand side of the page. They can watch it for free. No Clowning Around is on the right-hand side of the page for free.
Going back to David Lynch, I've been actually doing a series of articles on all of his movies on the Supernauts website. Last week I did Wild at Heart, and the way that I described his movies was watching his work, I'm convinced that he's from a parallel universe and showing us what it's like there. His movies are documentaries of a sort from a realm that is and is not ours. We recognize people, places, and things. Some may even bring about pleasant memories, but there's a sickly sweet smell underneath the surface. Would you describe your work kind of like that?
I like to feel like I tend to think that, I mean, I hate to put myself in any kind of category because, like, for me, I'm making what I want to see, or whatever is in my brain. I don't know if I have like much of a thought process of an alternate universe. I'd like to feel like if there is one thing, I do feel like they all kind of live in the same universe. I don't know if I always feel like there should be a thought of what am I seeing? What I'm seeing, is that really what's happening? You know what I mean? I feel like Rabbit Hole really delivers that because I do feel like at the end of that film, you get like quite the punch to the stomach because it's not what you were expecting. The next one, I feel like it's something that could happen, but at the same time, it doesn't really make a lot of sense. So, I don't know if I would say like it's like a parallel universe, but I David Lynch just is super brilliant to me. So, I'm such a huge fan of his work that I know that there was even times where he has not really had a script and he's just jotting ideas down on paper the next day for the next day. Like he'll sit at nighttime and figure out whatever he's going to have and the next day, and then that's what they're going to go by. And I don't know if that always works, but I mean it works for him. That he's just he's really really smart. And I think what also works for him is he meditates. So meditation I'm sure brings him a lot of ideas also. So I'm a big fan of that.
What do you think of the big brouhaha over Twin Peaks with him not directing it?
I don't think it's going to be as popular if he's not involved, and I do feel like it's a big hook if he is involved. I don't really know the reasoning. It might be money, it might be creative freedom. I don't really know. I don't really put a lot into it until I see, actually some results, and I don't think they were really too far into it before he kind of walked away. So I don't know. I mean, I do feel like he's valuable in that, and I do feel like they have a lot of story to tell. I wish he was more involved. I don't know exactly, what they're going to do. So I'm anxious to see what direction it goes. Maybe they'll bring him back. It's hard to tell. Or maybe he'll decide he wants to come back, whatever the case may be. Just as long as he keeps making stuff, his music is really good. I'm a big fan of his music. It's so weird and just different. I don't know. I'm anxious to see what he does.
I just read something today that came over Facebook that the character who played Bobby in Twin Peaks was giving an interview in Italy, and he said there's a 50-50 chance that Lynch would come back.
Sure, I can believe that. I mean, if it's a money situation, I think it's Showtime that's putting it together.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, Showtime is they're either going to decide, do I want to hit on my hands? Because for them it's a matter of, it's not such a matter of if it's a hit. It's a matter of, are we going to get subscription out of this? It might make me, I don't have Showtime now, but it might make me decide I want to invest in Showtime. You know what I'm saying? So it's hard to tell. I definitely feel like they have to look at it that way if they're not looking at it that way. I know that I ordered HBO for Curb Your Enthusiasm when that was on.
I ordered HBO for Game of Thrones. So these shows come about, and I think if there's enough viewer demand, Showtime is either stupid or they're not. And
Sure.
Hopefully they to their senses.
You would think that they had put this out in September, made the big announcement about it, and Lynch has already written the 9 scripts for it, and you would have thought that Showtime would have nailed down the directorial aspect of it, and actually had everything nailed down before they made the announcement.
It's hard to tell, when you're dealing with people that are artistic, you really just never know what direction they're going to go. And I don't know David Lynch, but I'm sure he has his own quirks. So it's very possible that once they got really close to getting actual physical scripts in order and got everything set up, it's possible that they were like, well, you said you would do this, you didn't do this, or he might have said you had said you were going to do this. So, I don't think anyone really knows but them and Showtime.
Do you have a favorite Lynch movie?
Eraserhead.
Yep.
Nice.
Yeah, it's very, very surreal. I can remember watching it a long time ago and thinking to myself, like, what am I watching, And there was just something so surreal about seeing the girl under the radiator, just dancing, and the babies are, like, falling out of the sky. And I'm just thinking, like, what am I watching, And for me, it just opened up like a Pandora's box of ideas where you don't have to make something that makes sense or has like it doesn't have to be able to happen in real life. Like in this life, there's no one under my radiator. There's no one that's, she's not stomping on babies as she's dancing or whatever. So to me, like, yeah, I mean, that I know of, but is it possible? I guess, I don't know. It just, and in later in my life, I got, more into, The Elephant Man is another really, really good one where I look at it and there's just something about black and white that he does that I just really, really love, especially Elephant Man, where he just uses shadows so well. and there's just little movement, and he just makes you feel like, you really care for John Merrick so much that I just feel like he really captured it so great.
I agree, Rob. And you mentioned you made an excellent point about things not having to make sense. And you and I have had a lot of conversations about Hollywood films versus indie films and which is better. And I don't want to go into that. That's a whole separate discussion. But to the point of things not having to make sense, I think we have lost a little bit of that in today's filmmaking, especially in Hollywood, where they're too afraid. You could never make a Eraserhead today, say, as a Hollywood studio film. They would never, ever take a chance on a film like that in a million years.
I think what happens is it's a trickle-down effect. So somewhere along the way, Hollywood got to be where everything had to be real. So what happens is all the independent filmmakers felt like, oh, everything has to be real, so let's make everything real. Or, if zombies are doing super good, everyone's got to make zombie movies. It's a trickle-down effect. So, unlike, and I'm not to say that I'm different or better than anyone else, but, I just want to make what I want to make, and I feel like the important part of filmmaking, without losing sight of what you're doing, is make things for you. You can't worry about everyone else because you're never going to satisfy everyone else. If you make something and you believe in it 100% and it makes you 100% happy, then I feel like you've done your job. If it attracts fans or attracts people that really appreciate it, then that's the bonus. I mean, maybe I look at it the wrong way, but I don't make it for everyone else. I kind of make it for me. And you hope that it finds an audience, and sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. I can't tell you how many times I'll go find independent films that no one's ever heard of that I think are just fantastic. So I try to do my best to spread the word, but I know that it's not going to be for everyone. It's almost like It Followed right now. It's, even though it was a smaller film making a ton of money, the first thing I tell everybody when they say, oh, how was it? It's not for everybody. You're either going to like it or you're not. I don't know if there's really a gray area there. So I do feel that, there's nothing wrong with that. For the people that it connects with, awesome. For the people that it doesn't, it's okay. There's going to be something again next week that maybe you'll like.
Of course.
Do you think indie films are doing a better job with horror than what Hollywood is doing right now?
I think that's a tough question to answer. I think that independent films are always going to have more original ideas. And I know that most times in Hollywood, they're going to do remakes. But if you were going to invest several $1 million into a title, chances are you're going to invest in a Poltergeist over, Susie gets, possessed. That's just the way that it works. And I totally understand, because the capital is so much different. We're talking millions of dollars versus maybe, for a short film for me, I'm looking at maybe, $3,000. If I was to make a feature, give me 30,000 and I'll make, I'll do the best feature that I can possibly do, but again, there's a chance that I'm not going to ever make that back or, ever see any return. But I mean, these are people that are dealing with millions of dollars. But I do feel that there's room in Hollywood for original films, but it's very tough for people to take that risk. The average fan that goes to the movies every week, I really don't know if they're my demographic. They're the demographic that's going to go and they're going to watch Poltergeist because they're 14 to 28 years old or 14 to 25 years old that have expendable money that are going to go to the movies because they're hanging out with their friends. They're not going to see that really good movie. That's why sometimes movies that maybe we don't like do such huge numbers. I think that's just the way that it works. That's just kind of the mindset that it's in. I would go see, but at the same time, like I don't mind going to see remakes. I'm not one of those people that instantly puts the kibosh on a remake. There's remakes out there of beloved movies like Night of the Living Dead. I actually like the remake over the original. Dawn of the Dead. I love Dawn from George Romero, but at the same time, the Dawn remake was a lot of fun. Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I love the original, but at the same time, the remake, not bad. So, it's just the way that it worked. Hopefully that answered that. I just kind of ramble. Sorry.
Rob, you brought up budgets, and so I've been chomping at the bit to talk to you about this, and
Sure.
I wanted to make sure we got to it. So you mentioned budgets, and when it comes to raising money for films, you have had three successful crowdfunding campaigns for your films.
Uh-huh.
And you've gone on, we've had multiple conversations about crowdfunding. I've seen you give seminars about crowdfunding. It's something you know a lot about, or I feel that you know a lot about. So what do you feel? I'm rambling. I see people bitching on Facebook and social media every day about how their crowdfunding campaign didn't work and they didn't get funded. What do you feel are the biggest barriers to people getting their project funded? Why are all
Okay.
these campaigns failing?
It's really not that difficult, and people make it to be very difficult, and they like to put blame on everywhere else. First of all, if you're a fan, you can spend your money any way you want. No one can tell you any different. So if you want to go and you want to fund Rob Zombie, more power to you. If he can raise it, who cares? The simplest things are this. First, do some research. Go on Indiegogo, go on Kickstarter, and see how slick some of these campaigns are that are getting funded. Then go and see the stuff that's not getting funded, and don't make those mistakes. Be serious about your budget. Don't balloon your budget to try and pocket extra money. It's silly. No one is going to take an independent filmmaker serious when they ask for $4 million and they don't have really anything under their belt to show for prior. It's just the way that it works. Make a trailer. Have a budget for your Kickstarter. I know that it sounds silly, but it's the truth. The more thought out and the more that you can make the perks. Perks are a big deal. Perks are why people buy. So if you can make your perks realistic and appetizing, I guess you would say, then people are going to invest. No one's going to invest $100 for a DVD. Not going to happen. Years ago, maybe, but now not going to happen. So I think that it really boils down to how much research are people really doing. And sometimes, to be honest, it's just poor timing. Look at the time of the season. If you're crowdfunding and it's back to school time, maybe you're not going to get it because parents are putting out a lot of expendable cash that they have into their kids. If you think that that crowdfunding in November and December is smart, you're probably not thinking it through because everyone's spending money on Christmas gifts. So it really comes to some common sense. It comes to a lot of research. I know that a lot of times before I do any kind of crowdfunding, I would do it like before I even did my first one, I did lots of research. So, I tried to figure out exactly what's the best. I tried to, utilize all my avenues the best. You can't constantly flood your Facebook or your Twitter with, hey, I'm crowdfunding. And for another thing, you can't take it personal when someone that you believe you that would invest in you doesn't. It's just life, man. There's a lot of people out there that I wanted to invest in their crowdfunding, but I have bills that I have to pay or I have something that I have to do. So I can't do that. It's just the way that it works out.
Just as a quick follow-up, lately the epidemic seems to be multiple campaigns for the same film. Pre-production, production, post-production. Help me pay to get my film into film festivals. Help me pay to travel to promote my film. Speaking strictly as a huge indie film fan and supporter, I'm simply weary of it. I only have so much money to spend, and it seems like filmmakers are trying to dip into the same well over and over and not understanding why that bucket is coming up dry.
I mean, I guess it would depend on the circumstance around the Kickstarter. But I can't imagine anyone investing in a Kickstarter for, hey, I want to do this Kickstarter to raise funds so that I can buy props for the movie. Well, what about the movie? Then what are you going to do then? If you raise money, you better be able to deliver on everything. I'm not a fan of that. I mean, some of it has to rely, if you're a filmmaker, you got to have some sort of a backup. While crowdfunding is great in everything, it's not the end all to end all. So like for Mortimer, if we don't sell enough, I'm going to take money and invest it. Matt's going to take money out and invest it, and some of the things that we want in regular life aren't going to happen because you have to invest it. But you hope that there's enough interest where no one loses money. But sometimes it happens. Like that's part of being, any type of event that you put on. And I do, do consider Indiegogo to be an event. Any type of event that you put on, if you're a promoter, which you are, there's a chance you can lose money. So you have to be able to, assume the risk. If you don't want to lose money, then do Kickstarter. Kickstarter, if you don't raise enough, you don't do it. That's the easiest thing. But if you do Indiegogo and you want to raise 10,000 and you raise 4, you better have an idea to come up with the other 6. You can't rely on the same people to put that 6,000 back in.
People like Spike Lee and Zach Braff went to Kickstarter to fund their movies. Do you think that when you're in a position like Spike Lee especially, do you think that dilutes Kickstarter or makes it not as viable for indie filmmakers when you see all these major filmmakers going in and doing it?
Well, there's 2 ways to look at it. The first way being that you could say, they have enough money, they can do their own. But realistically, the way that I look at it is maybe they're turning people on to Kickstarter that don't know that it exists. So maybe they'll spend $25 on their film, and maybe they'll look around and see what else other people have. Again, if the fans are willing to spend money on that particular person's Kickstarter, who am I to judge? No one says to me like, oh, you shouldn't go to the comic book shop and buy X-Men this week because it sucks. Hey, look, it's just the way it works. If I'm going to go spend money, it's my money. I can spend on it what I want. If they can crowdfund and they can make it, more power to them. There's a high risk. A high slim chance that the people that were going to go to Kickstarter that were going to invest in my film are going to turn around and say, no, I'm not investing in Rob's. I'm going to go invest in Spike Lee's. It's not happening. So all the people that sit out there and they make that excuse, they're being naive. If you have a solid foundation and you have a solid plan, it's, you can't just build it and they will come. You have to continue to add pieces to it, continue to add layers, and then people will come. It just doesn't happen like that anymore. You can't just put up a crowdfunder with, first of all, people want to hear from the director a lot of times or the star. So it's on you to make your appearance. If you can't speak, because I deal with a lot of people that are directors that say, that's not my thing. Well, I got news for you, buddy. It better be your thing. If you want to raise money, just the way it works. We have to put our big pants on. We have to be big adults and say, oh, okay, I need to speak on this and I need to, put over my movie and I need to show some of what I'm going to show and I need to show some camera tricks or some special effects. It's just the way that it works. You're selling your product to the public. So the more appetizing, here you are, it's like QVC, right? So Kickstarter's like QVC. I don't need that baseball card that's the gold Michael Jordan baseball card. But if the guy that's selling it to me is making it seem so appetizing, like, oh my God, I got to have it. Guess what? I'm going to pick up the phone and I'm going to spend $25 on this card that I don't need, that as soon as it comes, I'm going to say, why the hell did I spend that? You know what I mean? Like, it's just, they're talking you into it. So you have to be a good salesman. If you believe in your product, it should be simple. Do you guys disagree or?
Well, I think you know my feeling on it. I have been quite outspoken whenever I see somebody complaining, oh, how dare Rob Zombie? He's a wealthy man. Why does he need to crowdfund? Well, maybe he doesn't need to. Maybe he just wants to. And my feeling is that the Rob Zombie fan that's going to donate to his campaign is doing it to get a Rob Zombie autograph or a Rob Zombie hoodie out of the deal, which, you know what? People line up for hours at conventions for the same thing. What's the difference?
And chances are they're going to buy it anyway.
Right.
If it was a studio film, they're going to invest in it anyway. So what's the difference?
Exactly. No one will ever convince me that $50 donated towards a Rob Zombie campaign is $50 that would have otherwise gone to some indie filmmaker out there in the universe that no one ever heard of.
Yeah, I agree 100%. That's what I'm saying. Like, if you don't have, it's just like I joined the 31 campaign because why? Because I like Rob Zombie movies. I want an autograph, I want the DVD, the Blu-ray. I'm going to buy it anyway. So if I have to pay additional for the autograph, if he was going to be at a convention, I'm going to pay $100 for his autograph, or whatever. It's just life, like if you want it and you're a fan, you're going to pay for it. It's never going to take money away from somebody else, because the same people that donate there's a really good chance they're not going to be the same people that would donate in your film. You have to build your own audience. That's what it boils down to.
Well, and that's similar to something that Todd and I talked about when he was on the show about Hollywood movies versus indie movies, and how people, are always negative about remakes or reboots. The fact is, as Todd had stated then, just because they make these big budget movies doesn't mean that they would make a bunch of smaller movies if they didn't make the bigger one.
Sure, I agree.
And it's funny because prior to having that interview with him, I was one of those people that was really always against the remakes and the reboots. And, listening to Todd talk about them, he just changed my mind about that, which is a very difficult thing to do because, I'm a stubborn son of a bitch.
Like for instance, I like Kevin James as on the King of Queens show. His movie Paul Blart was terrible, okay, but Paul Blart 2 comes out. It does $22 million. Now you have to also think, and I think people are very self-entitled, where they have to believe every movie is made for them. It's not made for me, but it was made for $22 million worth of other people's money, and it's still going to do well the second week, and it's going to do well on Blu-ray. It's just it's facts of life. Not everything is for you.
All right. If they hadn't made Paul Blart, they would have made some other movies similar to it. So it's not as if there was some quality movie not being made because Paul Blart was getting out there.
Nope, I agree. They're not coming to some indie guy and say, you know what, we have $20 million here. Why don't you make the zombie movie that you wanted to make in your backyard with your friends? I'm not saying that.
My mantra is always just give me a good film. I don't care if it's a Hollywood film or an indie film. I don't care if it's a remake, reboot, or whatever.
I agree 100%.
Give me a good film. I'll either like it or I won't.
Right.
My only critique, if you will, the endless remakes and sequels and prequels is $1 spent on what I might think is an unnecessary remake is $1 that is not being risked on maybe an original screenplay somewhere. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but that would be my only sort of caveat about remakes.
I just don't think that they're in the business to take risks. They're in the business to make money. So if they can make Exorcist 7 over an independent film, they know that Exorcist has a built-in audience. Based on what Exorcist 6 did, they're going to decide on how much of a budget they're going to make. Do we really need a Paranormal Activity 6 or whatever number they're on? No, but what happens? People continue to go. It costs them $3 million to make. They make back $25 million. That's profit. That's what they want.
Oh yeah, it's the Blair Witch Project syndrome.
Sure.
That was made for what, $300,000, something like that.
Yeah, by the time they got done, I think it was like $1.5 million. By the time they got done fixing it up and doing everything else, but still, it went on to do tons and tons of money.
I think people sometimes forget that Hollywood is a business like any other. They're looking to turn a profit. We can wail about that all day long, but the same people that are wailing about how Hollywood is so terrible are the same people that are not buying independent films at conventions, not going to indie film premieres and screenings, and not supporting indie horror the way they like to loudly proclaim that they do. So there's a little bit of hypocrisy there.
Absolutely. And not only that, I mean, I've dealt with pirating. So a lot of times what'll happen is someone might buy the new Friday the 13th, but they'll download my film because they'll say, well, it's only $10 and I'll buy it if I like it. And I don't know how that's never true. Sometimes people will say it is. Most times it's not. And I'm not saying, all horror fans are one particular way. I have a lot of support in the community. Very thankful for that. But I support a lot of other independent filmmakers because I do feel like I am part of the community, and I do want to spread, the word, and I do try my best to let other people know if I see something good, I'm going to tell everybody about it. I try to be very positive. So, I try to express positivity because I'd rather talk about something that I like over something that I don't like. That's just the way that, I became over the last few years, where I just was like, you know what, I don't really have much interest in talking about things that I don't like anymore. I just don't. Would much rather, talk about movies that I do like.
How big a problem is piracy?
No clowning around. When it first came out, I sent it out. I sent physical discs out to reviewers before it came out. I sent out about 100 DVDs. I had expressed this not too long ago. I received maybe a quarter reviews. So I had all these DVDs out there. Well, what happened was someone had uploaded it to a pirating site, and it was downloaded 8,000 times before I released the movie. So 8,000 times, and I was only selling the DVD for $8. So, that's like $60,000 that I didn't get. If you figured that every person would have bought it, even if you figure out 20% would have, it still would have covered the next 3 short films. So it's a rampant problem, regardless of who you are. You're never going to stop it. There's nothing you can do about it. It's just the way that it is. If people can see it without having to pay for it, a lot of times they're going to. I do appreciate the people that do spend and that do support, but I understand at the same time, like, not everyone has expendable cash. There's a million factors that go into it. I'm not someone who steals. So for me, it's like, oh, if you would steal my movie, then it's okay for someone to come in and steal a movie off of your DVD shelf, in your house. I'm not a real big advocate of it. I don't like the excuses that people make, but I understand. And so what are you going to do? There's nothing that you can do to prevent it. All you can do is hope that people are honest. I'm sure that rabbit holes someplace out online. It is what it is. There's nothing I can do to stop it.
I'm downloading Rabbit Hole right now, actually.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem.
and he promises to pay for it if he likes it.
Yeah, right. I won't see that $12.
Well, what about online screeners? Is it easier to just do online screeners now? Because I remember reading a post of yours on Facebook about that, and you'd put out quite a bit of coin to get those DVDs made for the press screeners.
Yes. This time around for Rabbit Hole, I opted to not give away anything. I wanted to show that I had a value, and I wanted reviewers to put their money where their mouth was. So what happens was a lot of people said, "Oh man, I would totally buy your movie. Send it to me. I appreciate it. If I see you, I'll grab a copy." Well, guess what? No one ever did. I opted this time around. I said, I'm not going to give anything away for free. I'm not going to do any film festivals. I'm not going to give away any movies, any DVDs for review. I'm not going to let anyone screen it for free, because I want to prove that I have a value, and then I put out quality work. I've given away the first 2. Let me see how it works out. This time around, as I kind of figured out, I had 2 reviewers buy the movie. Everyone else just turned a blind eye. I've seen 2 reviews for the movie. That's it. Everyone else, they're just, and I'm not saying reviewers are bad. I feel like there has to be kind of a give and take. Like, if I'm giving you always, you can't expect it. So it would be nice if you return the favor and said, hey, and I understand they're writing about it, but it's their choice to write about it. It's not my choice to take the movie to give it away. It's their choice to write about the review. Maybe I look at it the wrong way, but I just feel like I've done enough. They're going to buy the Rob Zombie movie. He's not giving it to them. They're going to buy it. So, is there any way that you could float $10 my way for a DVD that'll help me on the next one? And then if you said to me and you pulled me aside and said, hey, look, I'll buy this one. Do me a favor. The next time the new one comes out, can you get me a screener or whatever? And I'll work with people. I'm easy to work with. But I just feel like there's a lot of greed right now. And a lot of people are very opinionated about it. A lot of people feel like reviews sell DVDs. I can tell you honestly, reviews didn't sell me any DVDs. They just never have. I don't know if it's because they're short films or whatever. I've been fortunate where I've made appearances at conventions like Rabbit Hole. For instance, I made it available the day that it came out, the first day at Monster Mania. and we outsold every DVD that I've ever released before. So people are buying it. I just was looking for more support from the horror community as far as reviewers go, and I just didn't get it. And it's cool. I'm not bitter about it. It's cool. Everyone, maybe I look at it a different way. But I'm thankful to those that did invest, and I'm thankful for those that took the time to write. When I share things online about certain movies, guess what? I've paid for them all. I haven't been given anything. So, I'm no different. I'm not writing reviews, but I'm sharing info if I like something. Because I feel like it's my duty as part of the horror community to spread the word about good films. Some people just don't see it that way. I get it.
So, Rob, you just made a statement that I found interesting. You said reviews don't sell films. And I agree with you. I myself write reviews only because I like talking about the films that I love and I want people to know about them. What do you feel does sell films?
When someone spends money on a DVD, they're more highly opinionated than a reviewer. Everyone believes their opinion matters. It's rare that anyone takes one specific person's word for a film. Like, I get people sometimes they'll say like, "Oh, let me know your thought." That doesn't mean they're going to go out and buy it. It just means that it sparked some interest. So if they hear a few people talk about it, then there'll be some interest. But I feel like I belong to a group on Facebook that's called Beneath the Underground, and a lot of people under there. It's happened that way where it sparks some interest, not by reviewers, but by people that actually supported the film, and then they seem like, I don't know. There's just a different type of jargon that happens between fans over reviewers, and it's like Todd, for instance, you and I could sit and talk about movies that maybe we've seen that we liked, and because we're not putting it down the paper and we're not trying to maybe come across smart or trying to come across as a character, or there's just something, and like I said, sometimes reviews do sell people. For myself, I never read reviews and base whether I want to see a movie based on that. I'm really probably, maybe I'm the rare, but I'd rather watch it on my own to see if what my real opinion is. There's a lot of movies out there that people hate, like Lords of Salem. People hate that movie. I actually really, really like it. To me, it's a movie that has great cinematography. The story, I like listening to commentary on the movie itself because I feel like he deals with the same stuff I deal with. So for me, it's like, oh man, it's so cool to listen to this, and I get to see where his mind was and what he was thinking, and there's just like so many things that are so fascinating. But if I listened to everyone else's advice on that film, there's a good chance I wouldn't have seen it. But because I took a chance and saw it for myself, it opened up a whole door for me. A whole avenue for me where I was able to be like, oh man, this is so good. And now, like, I bought the DVD, I bought the Blu-ray, and I have a ton of, enjoyment. I watch it a lot. But that's just one example. I'm a big fan of trying stuff on the blind buy. I don't mind blind buying something a lot of times either. Hopefully it didn't come across like the wrong way, because I do appreciate your reviews, and I'm not money hungry or anything else. I just feel like it's different when someone buys a DVD over when someone's given to them, because sometimes it can sway their opinion. And I do know websites that when people review the movies, they aren't honest, because then I watch the movie and I go, what is this? Like, this is garbage. It's the truth. You know what I mean? Like, but maybe my opinion was different than his. It's just the way that it works. I'm very thankful for all the support that I get in the community. If anyone thinks that I have a positive voice, I appreciate that. I just am a guy that likes to watch movies, and I'm not just horror movies, like movies in general. I like to act. I like to write. I just enjoy it a lot, So hopefully, I come across the right way and not the wrong way. I just, you guys are asking me questions that are like trigger questions that set me off. So, it's good stuff.
Who, me?
Yeah.
You certainly came across the right way. I know I've enjoyed having you on, Rob. This is the first time I've actually really gotten to speak to you. Really enjoyed it.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I'm very, I'm passionate. I love film. I love the horror community. I'm sad sometimes when I see so much negativity. Negativity will get us nowhere. We can, our money dictates things at the theater. You talk about that. If we don't want to go see Poltergeist because it's a remake, don't go. maybe then the bigger companies will decide, hey, you know what? Poltergeist cost us $23 million to make. It didn't make its money back. Let's try something else. Like we have the power. So that's why I try to support the independent guys that are out there that are making waves. I try to help people that are doing crowdfunding because I want to see more movies made. I'm certainly not the hardest guy to get a hold of. I'm on Facebook. If you look me up on Twitter, it's at Rob Dimension. You can go to my websites, you've been robfilms.com, robdimension.com. I'm always writing on there. Like right now, I'm influenced highly by Sid and Marty Krofft. Like, who says that? But like, it just like takes me back to something from my childhood where I'm like, that's helping me start to think of ideas for a feature. Because I do want to do something different. I don't want to do the same old, same old. So, I do appreciate you giving me the opportunity to speak. I appreciate Todd, always, because I do share a lot of private conversations with Todd about things that I see, and sometimes we're on the same page, sometimes we're not, but that's just what makes the community great. So,
Exactly.
I appreciate you having and putting together a show that gives people a chance to experience new things. Hopefully someone will say like, oh, this guy Rob sounds, hopefully not like an ass, and I want to check out his movie. So, that's the benefit.
Good stuff, Rob. Good stuff.
Absolutely. Thank Todd for his debut as co-host on here. Fantastic job. And I knew you were going to do that, Todd.
Thanks very much, Scott. I appreciate that. I had a blast.
On our next show, we'll have Jennifer Valdez, the director of Isabel, on.
Awesome person.
Nice.
And I really enjoyed her on the horror roundtable, and I'm really excited to talk to her. We'll have links on the show page where you can find information about Rob and his work, as well as all the social media links. And you can also subscribe to the Imaginarium on iTunes, as well as rate and leave a review. And if you enjoy the show, check out our other podcasts on the Supernauts Network at thesupernauts.com, including Jailbait, my newest venture with the one and only Wade Radford, where we talk about jailsploitation movies, because really, what else is there to talk about? And until next time, may all your journeys be filled with pure imagination.